Hello and welcome back to These Blind Eyes 6580. Today I am making refried beans. The stuff you get at the store is just fine, but they use pork lard and I don't eat pork, so I use shortening for that. Um, Now these are made, I use pinto beans, and you need to soak the pinto beans before you cook them. And part of it's to get just to start getting the moisture into them, but part of it's to get the skins off of them as well, as much of the skins as you can. But I am doing 2 cups of beans, which is quite a bit, but they're freezable, so why not? Because it takes a lot. It takes a lot to make refried beans. It's not hard, but it is time consuming because you have to let the beans soak for 6 to 8 hours. 6 hours typically works decent for me, so there's really no need for me to do it 8 hours. So you soak the beans, make sure that you cannot have too much water when you're soaking the beans. But then you need to put a colander into the sink, which a colander is a strainer shaped like a bowl. So basically, a bowl that's got a ton of holes in it. That's what you dump the beans in after you have soaked them for 6 hours. Then I run cold water over them and rub them together and stuff like that, get as many of the skins off as possible. Now, when you go to cook pinto beans, you need 4 cups of water for 1 cup of beans. So I have 8 cups of water in this pan, and it is 64 ounces. So that's a half gallon of water. So it takes a lot of water for these 2 cups. So it'd be a quart of water if you're just doing 1 cup. Now, other things that you need to know is, for one, when you're cooking the beans, for the majority of the time, the lid is on the pan. It needs to be covered. And you bring it to a hard boil, which that's what I'm waiting on now. And as soon as it hits that hard boil, then you turn it down to a simmer. And once you turn it down to a simmer, it takes about 2 hours to cook the beans. And I come back every 20 minutes or so and stir them. I'm not going to be doing video clips of me stirring the beans. I'm sure you can get the concept of that without me doing it on the video. While the beans are cooking, that's when I take the time to chop my onion, get my seasonings ready, because I'll use salt and pepper. I use minced garlic, which to me is just as good as using a garlic clove, only you ain't got to screw with peeling it or using a garlic press. And for minced garlic, it's 1 teaspoon is equal to a clove. I use chili powder, I use cumin, and salt and pepper, and onion. Now, once this is simmered for about 2 hours, that's when I take the lid off and start mashing the beans. I use a utensil. I'll show it when I do that video clip. It's essentially vertical and it'll stand upright. The end of it looks like a cross or an X depending on how you're holding it. And it's nothing but plastic, and you use just to chop up the beans and mash them into whatever. Then and I'll tell you at the time what I'm adding as far as how much of each thing, and as far as adding the shortening and stuff like that. Now, I learned this from a buddy of mine who's a chef. Even though some people say to add the onion and garlic and stuff like that before you start mashing the stuff up, you want to wait till the water's all but, mostly cooked down before you start adding stuff. Because for some reason, if you do it while there's still quite a bit of water, for some reason the beans just don't absorb the stuff in the same way, and you got to add more. So I want to avoid that. Now, other people once they're done boiling, they'll put them into a skillet to mash them up and do them that way. I don't. It's just dirty in one more pot. Why do that? It doesn't make sense to me. So you can do it how you want when it comes to that. But I'm going to get an oven mitt on here and take the lid off because it sounds like it's boiling right now. But it's also one of those things that when the lid's on it, yeah, it's not quite boiling yet. So, but yeah, once it gets to a boil, I'm going to go ahead and grab a spoon, if I can find one actually, and I'm going to stir the beans a little bit, help get the water mixed up a little bit. But yeah, it's gotten to a boil. So what I'm going to do now, because I got it on the highest setting to bring it to a boil. And so leave the lid on and I'm going to turn it down. And like I said, for the next 2 hours, every 20 minutes or so, I'm going to come stir the beans and make sure they're not sticking to the bottom or anything like that. But don't forget to put the lid back on because they need to cook for a long time at that simmer. So I will be back. I'm going to turn this down to a simmer now. And then I will be back when it's time to start mashing the beans and telling you what to put into it. But like I said, at this time, this is a good time to get your seasonings ready and chop your onion. That way it's all done and ready. All right, and I am back. So I let it simmer, stirring every 15-20 minutes for 2 hours with the lid on. Now the lid is off. I turned it up to about medium to get a harder boil going to get the excess water cooked off a lot faster. That took about 10 minutes. I have added the shortening, which is about 1/3 of a cup of shortening, maybe a half a cup. But I haven't added any of the other stuff yet. So the first thing I'm going to add to this now, because like I said, you don't want to add the seasonings and onion and stuff like that too soon, because for whatever reason, like I said, my buddy told me the beans just doesn't absorb the flavor that way. So instead of adding anything, I just cook them down first and then start adding stuff. And keep in mind, 1/3 of a cup to a half a cup of shortening, that's for 2 cups of beans. It's a lot of beans. I know it maybe doesn't sound like it, but so for seasoning that I add to this, in my other videos, I talk about tablespoons, teaspoons, and serving spoons in the silverware set. Forget that for this video, and I'm using measuring spoons. If you're blind like me, you can get Braille measuring spoons and cups on Amazon.com. I get the bigger sets because I'd rather have stuff I don't need than not have what I need. And right now this is still just a touch soupy, but it's gonna still keep cooking down in that. But so what I've got for seasonings, salt and pepper, you always do to taste. The rest of the seasonings, it's a good place to start, and you can add to it or take away as your taste tells you. So I have 1 level tablespoon of chili powder, 1 level teaspoon of cumin, because cumin's a bit stronger smelling in that and tasting, so you don't need as much. And then, like I said, salt and pepper to taste. So I got that put in. I'm going to get that stirred in. Now, as I was saying before, I use minced garlic because I don't like peeling the cloves and dealing with all that. So for the 2 cups, I am using 6 level teaspoons of minced garlic. 1 teaspoon is a clove of garlic, the equivalent. Now, minced garlic is not the dried powdered stuff, if you don't know. It's something that you keep refrigerated. And like I said, my buddy told me he uses anywhere from 4 to 6 per cup of beans. That just sounded strong to me. And so I started off just using 3 per cup. And so far, that's pretty good for me. I don't need the rest. I don't need all that other. Because 6 teaspoons of garlic, minced garlic's quite a bit. Minced garlic and raw garlic are a lot stronger than the dehydrated, granulated stuff you'll get. I'm gonna rinse off my hand quick. And along with this, I'm probably going to be making other videos today because I am, now that I got my garlic added, I'm going to be just sitting here stirring, making sure everything's all mixed up together. I'm making refried beans because I'm going to be making some Spanish rice, and I don't have everything I need to do that from scratch, so I'm not making a video on that. Every brand is different as far as the box, so we happen to have that, so that's what I'm going to use. I'm not going to make a video because you can read the instructions off of a box. If you're blind, there's apps like Seeing AI that will scan and read stuff like that to you. But I'm making tacos, so I'll be doing a video on browning the beef, the ground beef, and I'm going to keep that separate from the taco video itself because tacos isn't the only thing you need a brown ground beef for to make. So that way you don't have, how you're not going to be able to know what to look for if you need to know how to brown meat if it's just under my taco video. And likewise, then when I make the taco video, you aren't going to need to see me brown the meat. So I figure it'll be easier to just make 2 separate videos, but I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then I'm thinking about, because usually I make a lot of taco meat and a lot of refried beans and all that kind of stuff. So I'm thinking maybe tomorrow, usually what we do with the leftover meat and refried beans and stuff like that is make tostadas, which is basically a massive nacho. So they're amazing. I'm going to turn this back up to medium quick, just to try to get it. Well, actually, I'm simmering it back down. I forgot the onion. Get that out of the fridge. Now I chopped half of an onion, or I chopped an entire onion. It's a medium onion. Somewhere between medium and large, but it isn't huge or anything. So I'm using about half of that onion in these refried beans. Then the rest of the chopped onion, they'll be for the tacos. So sometimes I get sidetracked because I want to let you know I was going to be making those other videos too. I'll post these refried bean ones first, and then maybe wait a day or 2 before I do the others. But okay, now I'm going to turn this back up to medium. Cook the onion down a little bit. But yeah, it's pretty important to remember everything you're wanting to make or add to it. Imagine that, huh? Now the texture of this, when you know you got it cooked down enough to start adding ingredients, it's not runny, it's Not quite as thick as pudding. You know what? I don't know if you know what I mean with that or not. It's just it's thick, but it's still kind of runny. And part of the reason why I'm turning it up, and since I'm turning it up and it's so close, I'm essentially constantly stirring just to make sure it's not sticking and all that kind of stuff. But the reason I got it turned back up is because there's going to be quite a bit of moisture coming out of them onions. And you're going to kind of want to cook them off. And so, you know what the consistency of refried beans are when you have them at a restaurant or at home out of a can. So that's how you're going to know when to quit stirring this stuff. I'm probably going to quit a little sooner than that because, like I said, I need to keep it warm, so I'm going to put it on a real low simmer on another burner while I do the tacos, do the taco meat and do the rice. But the thing is, I don't know what these taste. I told you I don't eat pork, so I don't use pork lard. I use shortening. So I don't know what the difference is when it comes to using pork lard instead of shortening when it comes to flavor. But I will tell you that these taste way better than anything I've ever had out of a can. But usually homemade does. I'm sure you can hear that it's kind of boiling a little bit and it's real thick sounding. What I'm going to do now, I told you about the utensils. I even asked my mom, she didn't know what that thing was called. It's got a handle, and it's at the end of the handle, it comes to a cross or an X, if you can see. That's what it looks like. I did not use that. I've tried it before. It just doesn't work that well for me. What I use is it's actually an antique potato masher. If you can see, that's what it looks like. For those who can't, it's a handle, and at the base of the handle, there is a flat, round piece of metal, and the piece of metal has holes in it. That's what I used to mash the beans. It just ended up working a lot better. But there went the masher. Good thing that I'm going to put a little bit of beans on this plate while I'm stirring stuff down. That way it can cool and I can actually taste it, because right now I'm not one of those people that can just eat stuff that's got a real high temperature. I can't do it. I'm going to turn this back down because it's close. It's close to being done, period, much less the fact that I'm going to recover it just so the moisture isn't escaping when I got it on the back burner, which is nothing but a simmer. But yeah, here in a second I'm going to taste what I put on that plate. See, that's the thing. The more you do stuff like this, and the only thing I got to worry about as far as what the taste is the salt and pepper, because I don't measure it. I dump it in my hand and then put it in. The black pepper I do a pinch. And so it may be a little weak, maybe needs a little bit more or a little more salt or something like that. But typically, once you start getting this kind of stuff down, you don't have to do little taste tests. I do it from time to time just to make sure, but oh my gosh. Oh wow. I'm telling you, that is awesome. So I am going to call this good, and I am going to get it put on the back burner on a low simmer, the lowest possible, just to keep it warm. It's basically a warmer burner, and keep it covered. And then I will be doing the other videos as far as browning meat and making tacos, and I use my own recipe for taco seasoning as well. So just know those videos are coming and look for them. If you have any other questions, don't forget to subscribe, like, share it, all that good stuff. But if you have any other questions, comments, whatever, feel free to email me at littlemb6580@gmail.com. So until next time, y'all take care.